Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode.
The most dangerous thing is if we are kind of complacent, thinking, oh yeah, no, we're one of the biggest studios, we know what we're doing, we don't need to worry, the world will mold around us. That's how companies die.
Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker Podcast. This week I'm talking to Tom Box, the founder of Blue Zoo Animation. Hi Tom, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Cheers for having me. Looking forward to chat.
You're more than welcome. Don't often get to talk to people in animation, so looking forward to this one. And obviously Blue Zoo have done a ton of stuff. I'll put links in the description, but loads of stuff you would recognise animation-wise. But if we just go back, where did this all start for you, your career in animation?
It depends how far back you want to go, because when I was at school, I used to make animations out of clay and used to make all the sets in my bedroom. And back then, this was kind of the early 80s. So I just had a camcorder. I had to press stop and start as quickly as possible to capture as close to one frame as possible. So it's pretty rudimentary, but I loved creating my own little worlds and telling stories. And then one day my dad brought home a BBC microcomputer, and it didn't come with any software, it just came with a manual on how to code it. And that blew my mind, because you could then code it and make your own graphics. So I kind of then slightly moved into kind of creating animations on the computer. And then going forward a few years, I realized that you could then study at a university. When my brother was 2 years older from me, he was looking into prospectuses from universities, and I found one for Bournemouth University, which they had a course for 3D animation. And that kind of blew my mind, that you could actually go and do it for a job, and you could actually go and study that. And so I picked my A-levels just to get into Bournemouth. This was around 1995, so it's just when Toy Story 1 was kind of being released. And I did computer maths and art A-levels, got into Bournemouth. And that was fantastic, kind of being around a lot of kind of like-minded people, just making animations, really passionate about it. And then in the final year, one of my classmates, Ollie, sent an email out to a year saying, who fancies starting a company, not having your own boss? And I was like, brilliant, yeah, I'd be well up for that. I can do all the IT side of it, having tinkered with computers for many years already. So I can do all the IT, and also I'm an animator, so I can do the creative side as well. So, and then he picked some others in the year, Adam Shaw as well, who is great at directing. So Ollie kind of picked the best people he thought would be the best mix of skills, rather than just picking mates. And then we started our own studio in university in our final year. And then fortunately our very first our first client we met at our degree show, where the BBC were there, because they were launching a new channel, and they said, would you be up for doing some animations for our new channel? We were like, yeah, love the BBC as our first client. And then that turned out it was for the launch of CBeebies in 2002. And we ended up making loads and loads of animations for CBeebies and all the digital channels that started in that period. So it was a very fortunate window of, it was the first time you could actually do computer animation on a home PC and set up a PC animation studio in your garage or bedroom. And there was suddenly an explosion of demand for content because of all the new channels with digital TV. So that was 26 years ago. And over the preceding 26 years, we've now kind of grown and evolved to be one of the biggest animation studios in the UK now. And we still kind of love creating those animations, and we're really proud of, everyone in the studio has really kind of put everything that into kind of making animations that have a lot of kind of value to them. And we're now a B Corp as well, so we've really cemented that kind of positive impact into everything that we do. So that's a quite long-winded way of telling you how I
No, that's fine. I guess I'm sure it was a lot harder than it sounds when you say it, because it sounds like, yeah, me and some friends from uni got together, pitched, BBC came along, picked it up, and bish bash bosh. I'm sure there was a lot more hard work involved. So you've had that start, you've just got in at the right moment, all the stars have aligned.
Yeah.
Where are we now, do you think, with animation? What's the current state of the industry?
I mean, it's been a very bumpy ride over the last few years because we had the golden years of TV, which was around kind of when COVID was and everyone was watching TV. So, and there was low interest rates. So all the streamers were commissioning left, right, and center, which meant there was an absolute boom and, everyone was employment. And now that's finished. And then there's been an extreme contraction in the number of commissions, which has meant that there's a lot more people looking for work, and some of the studios haven't survived just because there's not enough work out there. But at the same time, we're busier than ever at the moment. So there is, I think we're seeing more kind of studios and streamers now commissioning again. So on that side, it's been very positive, and hopefully that will continue in that direction. So we get out of that lull we've kind of been in. But there is kind of changing landscapes. For example, YouTube's one of the main reasons as well why there's been a contraction in commissions from TV channels, because everyone's watching YouTube, not watching TV. So there's less people paying for adverts on TV, which means there's less money to fund the TV shows. So it's all kind of quite circular. So we're adapting ourselves to be able to do more of the YouTube stuff, having our own kind of digital team running that side of it. And I think the other side of it is AI as well, where that's a constant kind of concern of competitors not really worrying about the quality and just generating slop, which is, we've kind of got the opposite approach where we're using AI to build tools to help the artists do their human craft. So I think it's trying to make sure with all of those things that we're keeping a level, balanced and informed view of the whole market, and making sure that we're adapting our company. And the most dangerous thing is if we are kind of complacent, thinking, oh yeah, no, we're one of the biggest studios, we know what we're doing, we don't need to worry, the world will mold around us. That's how companies die. So we're trying to be very aware and keep our ear to the ground, rather than kind of pretending we know best, when we're always just experimenting and spread betting to make sure that hopefully one of those routes forward is the way the world goes, which is easier said than done. But and that's the fun of it, because we continue to experiment. We've never worked at another animation studio, so we've always just experimented a way forward, and so far that's been worked out all right.
Yes, yeah, sounds so, definitely. So you talk about people out there looking for jobs and stuff, and I'm sure you employ a lot of junior animators, artists, that kind of stuff. So what if you're chatting to someone or you're interviewing them, you're looking at their work, what stands out for you? How do you get a job if I'm coming to Blue Zoo and I'm doing an interview? What will make me stand out?
So there are two parts to it. One is we're a portfolio-based industry, so it doesn't matter what letters you got after your name, what courses you've done. If your portfolio is not good enough, you won't get a second look. So it's really about tailoring that portfolio to our studio's needs. Like, for example, when we pitch for a job, we'll edit our show reel so it looks like we're the absolute perfect studio just for that one job. Might only take us half an hour to swap a few shots around. So I think it's always useful to try and send studios work that's relevant to what they're doing. So, for example, we're a cartoony animation studio. So what we don't want to see submitted to us is some 100% natural horse galloping that looks absolutely beautiful and realistic, because we want to do a silly horse galloping that's a little bit goofy. So that looks cartoony. So that's one part of it. I think from the other, there's another part to that where we want to see people's kind of passion, and we want to see what they've been making in their own time, not just what they've done, some coursework that they've done. We want to see people kind of really putting their own spin on something. So whether it's making some animation or art, we want to see they care about it, because that's we want to be surrounded by people that also care about the work and are impassioned, but also highly highly skilled. So we want to see that in a portfolio. And again, if you're doing animation and you've made us laugh in their portfolio, then that's absolutely kind of golden. The other part is, once we've seen that portfolio and we think, oh, they look great, you have the interview, and the interview is really the kind of the humanness test to see how well you are at critiquing your own work. If you say, here's my work, and you're asked to critique it, and you say, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, it's absolutely perfect, no one in the world can top this, you're probably not right for our studio. Mm-hmm. So it's being able to have that kind of level-headedness and being able to communicate well. It doesn't mean you're an extrovert. You know, most of our staff are introverts, but we still need people who can communicate well to make sure that everyone can understand what each other's doing. So that's really the interview is more of a personality test to make sure they can communicate well and they can, you know, critique their own work without being offended.
Yeah, good advice. So we're saying tailor your portfolio for the place you want to work at, and make sure you smash that interview and kind of be yourself, but be the sort of person who can take critique. Yeah,
exactly. I think being yourself is the most important part, because, you know, there's no point hiding things because you'll get found out on week one. So you want to be confident, but not unauthentically confident in that sense. You don't want to try and act like you've got skills you don't have, because that will come back to bite you when, you know, you suddenly land in the studio and don't know what you said. So I think, you know, we always want to help people grow and evolve. So I think, you know, transparency and honesty is the key thing there.
Definitely. And what about are there any sort of common personality traits you see in people in animation? Are there any sort of skills they have over and above the art that you think, oh, you need to be this type of person?
I think in terms of skills, I mean, it's ultimately, I think we want people who are genuine, people who aren't who enjoy collaborating with others. If someone's kind of being really possessive and going, no, I don't want to share this with anyone, I just don't want anyone else to do it and look at it, and I don't want to talk to anyone, that's problematic if you're part of a team. So it's really seeing how people can be really thrive kind of working with others. And again, that doesn't mean you're an extrovert. Plenty of people are introverts who work well in teams. And it's not being, I think the other key one is being able to provide suggestions of how to fix things. Because I think there's sometimes two types of people. There's one type which will sit on a problem and wait until they're told to do something else. For example, if it gets to the end of the day and your manager or director says, hey, can you send me that animation? And they said, oh yeah, my software stopped working at 10 a.m. So I've been trying to, wasn't sure what to do after that. So they're like, what? So you haven't done anything all day? Then that's problematic compared to another type of person who might have run into the same problem and they figured it out. They Googled how to solve it. If they weren't sure, they'd suggest their manager going, look, this is happening. I think I should do it this way, or is there a better way? But they were proactive and looked at how to get the best out of the situation and solve it, rather than just sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting to be directed, which is being more reactive. So I think it's understanding kind of reactiveness in the workplace versus kind of proactiveness. And we want proactive people who are were just really energized to go and get the problem solved. So their work's kind of brilliant because they're really engaged in finding out, you know, solutions. Because when you're a animator or work in any kind of creative role or any job, it's all about problem solving. So we want people to be able to problem solve and being able to, you know, break those problems down and think through them and not be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important skill that's sometimes
definitely
overlooked.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating when someone hasn't got that, like you say, and you find out, why don't you just come and talk to me?
Yeah.
You know, we could have solved it. You know, don't sit on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you output a lot of stuff for kids.
Yeah.
I'm jumping topics here.
That's right.
I wondered, how much influence do they have on what you create? Do you get kids in to watch it? How's it work?
So we do focus groups. So when a show's kind of in production, we often, probably more often than not, we'll test the show with a group of children to see what they think. But that's you always have to do that carefully, because sometimes children will kind of tell you what you want to hear, or sometimes they'll be very brutal. So I think but also part of the creative process is going with gut instinct. So we have to kind of balance what in the gut instinct feels will make a really nice animation that we'll enjoy watching, and then if we'll enjoy watching it, then it's likely other people will, but also to make sure that we're not being kind of blinkered and naive about that, and we are taking in other people's kind of mindsets. So we do we work with children in that way. We're always getting feedback from parents and teachers, and we also work with educational specialists. So on our educational shows, we always work with a specialist who makes sure the content we do is properly educational from a science-based approach, and we're not just winging it, kind of making it up and interfering with how the curriculum works, which could cause more problems if we're teaching things in different ways than they're used to at school. So it's a kind of a multifaceted approach to make sure we're doing the best thing, whilst also letting our creatives be nice and autonomous and crack on and do what they do best.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So that's the satisfying the kids' educational needs. What about the whole art versus commerce, making something that's going to sell versus something artistic? Because I guess we automatically think of animation as artistic because it involves someone drawing something.
I think there's a bit of a misconception there around that. People think that all the toys and merchandise you see around kind of children's and preschool shows is just there to kind of rinse pocket money of preschoolers. But when we make a show, we don't really make any kind of profit making the show, because we want to spend every single penny making it look as good as possible on screen, and all that money going to the artists and all the crew on it. So the reason all that happens afterward is to try and make some money to make sure we can invest it into new shows in the future, and so we can stay kind of financially stable by having that profit to do that. So it's more of a way of making the shows viable than it is just a nice to have after. So that's kind of really important. And then we have a licensing team where when a show's starting, we'll look at the designs to make sure that they can be made into toys quite easily. We don't make a vehicle or something which is impossible for them to then make, because then you won't get anyone buying those toys because they're too expensive to manufacture. So it is, and that's always creator driven, and then we take advice on how to make the small tweaks to make it as hopefully successful as possible financially, so then we can do more series and have more work. But it always starts with the creative, and then it's advised on how to tweak it from the money side rather than driven from the money, because I think we can all tell when a show is driven by money rather than people who genuinely care. And one of our core things we do at the studio is every single project we want people to enjoy making it, because we can tell when you watch a show and no one's enjoyed kind of making it, and we pick shows we think our staff will absolutely love working on, because we think that will then be seen on the screen, and everyone will enjoy watching it as much as our teams have enjoyed making it.
And do you keep any of them toys? Have you got like a collection of stuff you've made, or is it in your office?
Probably I did more when my kids were preschool age. That was very, very handy then. Our office is full of the toys from the different things we have. So I try and keep that in the office than have it at home. I've got enough toys from my kids at home without contributing
Fair
more.
enough. Fair enough. So tell me, you're involved in the Young Animator of the Year. Tell me about that. Who's it for? How's it work?
So Young Animator of the Year is an initiative we help organize. It's an Access VFX initiative, and Access VFX is a non-profit that helps diversity and inclusion in the industry to make sure everyone's getting a fair chance, regardless of your background. And that's really where it started, because we really wanted to make sure that young people are aware of all the amazing kind of careers there are, and we wanted to champion the amazing talent out there, where there's so many kind of like teenagers making amazing animations, but with very little few places to actually, share them. So we wanted to make a platform that does that. So Young Animator of the Year has now been running for 6 years, I think, or 5 years. And we've seen some amazing students come through that, where we, in the very first time we run it, a student called Josh won the kind of the 3D animation category, and he'd been learning Blender since he was like 10 years old or something like that. Watched every single tutorial out there, never studied animation at all, and he made this amazing animation. He won the competition. I think at the time he won a laptop, and he was like, I've already got a laptop, as nice as that is, that's what I made the animation on. So he said, well, can I have an internship? Because that's what I really like. And we said, okay, when you're 18, you can come to the studio and for 2 weeks, and we'll pay you for that. And he never left. And that was a few years ago now, and now he's absolutely brilliant. Everyone wants Josh on their team, because he's a brilliant, proactive problem solver, knows Blender inside out. So it's those stories, the ones where we see those kind of like those, it's kind of helped give them a step into the industry, and that meant that he didn't even have to go to university as well, because he just went straight in. So it's really trying to open up not just awareness, but progression routes, and give people the awareness to show their work. So those kind of incidents happen where they can, stand a higher chance of getting a job, because they could say, I was Young Animator of the Year, and that helps you kind of stand out against all the other applicants as well. So it's a competition we run every year. It opens from around May time and closes in September. It's open for anyone from 11 to 22 years old.
Oh, right. Okay.
Across stop motion, 2D animation, CG animation. And the winners are announced at Manchester Animation Festival in November, where we kind of screen the winning film, give out the trophies, which look like this. Nice.
Oh, lovely.
Nice trophy. And yes, and it is absolutely amazing. I'm always blown away by how creative they've been and how skilled the animators are, but also how varied all the animations are, which is always fantastic. So we absolutely love running that, and it's judged by so many amazing people. Some of the best animators in the UK are judging that as well. So I find it's just an all-round lovely way of helping young people kind of share what they've been up to and encourage them ultimately.
Yeah. Fab. I'll put a link to that in the description below. So if you want to enter that and you're the right age, definitely do it. If you were either leaving uni or doing your A-levels, and you had 6 months to kind of turbocharge your skills, what would you advise that person to do to become a better animator?
I would do lots of little small projects. So I think part of the it's great going to university and everything you learn and the people you meet, but often you can just do kind of one project. So you get one opportunity, like one big project, as you get one opportunity. So and there's nothing wrong with that, but I think on top of that, you can do lots of small, tiny projects. Because I always think if you only ever do one big project, it's a bit like learning to run by doing a marathon on your first day rather than going for a small run every morning. So always encourage people to not be precious about it, but just if you want to go into animation, for example, just download a character rig and just every day, just, do a little 20-second animation, different every day. And then you will learn kind of so quickly. And I think also another thing to do is share online if you're old enough to, on YouTube or whatever, because then you get feedback. And now we see kind of like TikTokers and YouTubers making Hollywood films at a young age, because they've learned at such a quicker rate, because they've uploaded a short film, got feedback on it, seen what's worked, and then made another one. So I think that cycle of creating something small, sharing it with a little kind of small community of passionate people, getting some feedback, not being offended by that feedback, and seeing what works, what doesn't work. You can learn so much quicker now than you could have say 20 years ago when there wasn't that kind of fast feedback loop. So I'd really recommend, just do lots of small experiments, keep pushing yourself creatively, challenge yourself, and just keep practicing by doing that. Really, there's no shortcuts apart from, practice makes perfect.
Yes, amen. And the last question I was going to ask you was, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in your career, do you think?
That's a tricky one, because I'll tell you why it's quite tricky, because we've always just done things our way. So
just go on with it.
I mean, part of that has been is when anyone said early on when we started the company, anyone said, "Oh, this is the way it's done," we'd be like, "Why?" And they're like, "Oh, that's just the way it's done." We'd be like, "Well, we're going to see if there's a different way there," and often there was a better way. So I think in that sense, I think the most valuable advice that we've kind of more learned than been given is just experiment every single day and try something new and push yourself out of your comfort zone, because that's what's got us to where we are. So I think that's more imparted from the wisdom of the world rather than given to us from one individual. But I think that's the advice that we've kept true to.